So we are in the third week of No Matter What, our Easter series this year. And I just want to talk about, when I was growing up, we weren't, super religious. We didn't go to church, every week. But we did make sure we always went to church on Easter. And I think there's a lot of families that are kind of that way, They go Easter, Christmas, but it was always really fun for me. It was the one time I knew we would be going to church, and I would go to Sunday school and I would get to see people I hadn't seen in a while. So I really enjoyed that. And then I learned we would do the Easter egg hunts, and I learned all about how Jesus came to earth and he died and then he rose again, and it was always a really interesting and fun time for me when I was growing up. And then obviously, as I grew older, I got to choose to actually go to church myself, and I started spending time with different parts of my family, and then I got married. And this last Easter, actually, we kind of started a new tradition. It wasn't a big family dinner, but me and my wife just went and spent time with her mom, and her mom made a ham, and I love deviled eggs. My wife hates that I love deviled eggs, but my wife's mother loves that I love deviled eggs because she loves making them, and I love eating them way, way too much. Deviled eggs they're fun. I like them, and they're my favorite part of Easter. I know that sounds weird to say, but deviled eggs are my favorite part of Easter with my wife's family. And I say all that just to kind of come around. Easter is worth celebrating. And it's not just because of the Easter egg hunts and the really awesome food and spending time with family, but Easter reminds us that we are loved no matter what, and we matter no matter what, and we are forgiven no matter what. And we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, right? And what does that actually mean? What does the resurrection of Jesus actually mean? I mean, on one thing, that's just really cool. You can count on one hand, actually you can count on, I think, two fingers, how many people actually died and came back to life. There was Jesus and there was Lazarus, right? There may have been somebody else, but I can't remember. Does anybody else know of anybody documented, proven that somebody died and came back to life? Who's that? Huh? Okay. It also means that death is defeated, right? And that's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ben Franklin. He's one of the really important guys in the early parts of American history. He had a saying that there are only two things in life that are guaranteed. And I know I'm paraphrasing this. Death and taxes. That's the only two things you can't escape in life. And Jesus proves that, I guess taxes are the only thing we can't escape. And actually that is biblical, because Jesus said, pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right? So, hey, biblical. The only thing that we can't escape is taxes, because Jesus escaped death. But it also means that nothing separates us from God's love. No sin, no mistake, no misstep, no decision we've ever made. Because of Jesus and what he did, on Easter, we know that we are loved, accepted, and forgiven no matter what. Now, there might be people okay, that's a cool story. Jesus, he came to earth, he died, he rose again. I don't really see how that has anything to do with me or my life or the things I've done, right? And trust me, I get that. I struggle with that too. It's what does that mean about his love? And the things I've done, Jesus came to earth, he died, and he rose again for all these people that believe in him, right? But that doesn't apply to me, right? The things I've done, There's no way. And you're probably thinking the same thing. That's the things I've done, but that's what the death and resurrection means. It literally means no matter what, it can be hard to feel like we're loved, accepted, and forgiven by God no matter what. It can feel really hard to remember that. When we make bad choices, it's easy to feel like God is far away. We think about the things we've done, we feel guilty. Maybe we stop coming to small group, or we stop going to church. We stop talking to the friends that are close, that we've grown with God. We've grown closer to God with. We stop talking to those people. We cut ourselves off from that part of our life because of the things we've done, the decisions we've made, the things we've seen, maybe even things that have happened to us. Do we really need God to remind us of all the things we've done wrong by remembering this story, right? Because without us doing the wrong, Jesus wouldn't have come to be resurrected. If there wasn't anything to forgive, there wouldn't be a need for that resurrection, right? So we cut ourselves off. We think, well, there's no way that God's going to love me and forgive me for the things that I've done. Like, that doesn't count for me, right? We mess up. We feel like God's mad at us. Big or small, our mistakes have a way of making us feel like we're not enough, and there's just no way that after everything we've done, there's no way we could actually be forgiven, right? And to help us see what I'm talking about, we're going to introduce another guy, and you guys are probably familiar with him. His name is Peter, and he was one of the disciples for Jesus. So we've got John, Mary, and now Peter. And Peter's going to tell us about his experience walking with Jesus and the things that he went through during that resurrection, right? So Peter was a fisherman who completely left his life and career behind when he met Jesus. He said, man, this guy is onto something. I'm going to follow him. He eventually became one of the leaders of the early church. He's a pretty big deal when it comes to early Christianity. He's a pretty big deal when it comes to modern Christianity. Peter is I talked about Ben Franklin earlier as like one of the founding fathers, right? Well, Peter is one of the founding fathers of early Christianity. And you think, okay, Peter, he's a great guy. He must have had a perfect life. He was just this great, awesome guy. He followed Jesus from the very beginning. There's no way he did anything wrong, right? Like, he's so much better than what we could ever be. That's really not true. Like, Peter, I'll let you in on a little secret. He made some pretty big mistakes, and he didn't always think first when he acted. I feel like I have a lot in common with Peter. Sometimes he would just do things and then kind of be like, didn't really think about the consequences on that one, right? So as Jesus was nearing the end of his life, he knew that he was going to have to die. He knew that he was going to be turned over to the Pharisees, to the Roman courts, and he knew that he would end up giving his life for the things that he represented, the things he had said, the things he has done. He knew that it was coming, and he knew he was going to be captured and killed on a cross. And he also knew there was a lot of potential pain and some danger for his disciples, including Peter. I mean, they had dedicated their lives to following this guy who the Roman government considered a radical, like they couldn't let his message spread. So when Jesus was arrested and taken to be killed, of course they'd be in danger of being taken with him. And to prepare them for what was ahead, Jesus warned his disciples that events about to take place. Well, when Jesus said, hey, I'm about to be taken, you guys are going to be in danger, Peter said, you know what, I promise I'm going to stand by you to your death, right? Peter said, no matter what, when they come to take you, I'm on your side. I'm never gonna turn my back on you. You got a friend in me, right? When it came down to it, and Jesus actually was arrested, Peter did something. It was unexpected, but it was also. I feel like some of us would do the same thing in his shoes, right? He denied even knowing Jesus. When people would come up to me like, hey, do you know this Jesus guy? He'd be like, no. After Jesus' death, Peter and the other disciples weren't sure what to do. Their friend and teacher had been killed, and they were left alone, afraid, and in Peter's case, guilty, because he kind of betrayed his best friend. He told Jesus, I will be with you until the very end. And then as soon as Jesus had been captured and killed, he's like, no, I don't even know that guy. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. After Jesus' resurrection, his friends had actually gone back to their old lives. So Peter went back to being a fisherman, right? And he was out on a boat with a bunch of the other disciples, like, fishing, and they weren't doing very good. They weren't doing very well. But they had gone back to their old lives. And one night, like I said, he was out with the other disciples, and they weren't really having any luck. And someone from the shore called out to him. As they got nearer, Peter realized that the stranger on the shore that was calling out to their boat was Jesus. So as soon as Peter saw Jesus standing on the shore, he jumped out of the boat and swam to the shore. Like, can you imagine that? Like, this guy that you saw him die, and then here he is standing on the shore. He was elated, but he was also scared. Like, he promised Jesus that he would never turn on him, that he would be with him till the very end. And now here he is standing in front of me. I don't know how you would feel. Like, that had to be a really hard thing for Peter, right? Like, the one man he said he would never betray, he denied even knowing him, and now here he is standing in front of him. Peter had actually denied knowing Jesus 3 times. And because of that, you might think that Jesus greeted Peter here with less than a warm welcome. But in the book of John, chapter 21, it actually shows us what Jesus had said to Peter. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, Peter replied. You know I love you. Then feed my lambs, Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, Peter said, you know I love you. Then take care of my sheep. A third time he asked, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was hurt by that Jesus asked the question a third time. He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said, then feed my sheep. Jesus gave Peter a chance to right his wrongs. Peter had denied Jesus 3 different times. And and then Jesus turned around and asked him 3 times, do you love me? That's pretty incredible, right? I think Jesus knew the guilt that Peter must have been carrying with him. I think it'd be really hard to face somebody that like you kind of gave up on. But Jesus didn't give him just the one chance to be redeemed. 3 times he said, do you love me? And he gave Peter the chance to say, yes, Lord, I love you. Not just that, Jesus wanted Peter to continue to have a place in God's story. Like, not only did he he forgave Peter for denying him, but he also wanted Peter to know, hey, your part in this isn't done. I want you to shepherd my flock. I want you to take care of the people who have followed me. So often I think we feel like our own mistakes or failures not only keep us from God's love, but keep us from God's story. They keep us from God wanting to use us for big and important things. But Jesus asked Peter to take care of his sheep. And he does the same thing with us. Other Christians would one day come to know and follow Jesus. And he told Peter, take care of these. And he says the same thing to us. It's a pretty big job, and it's one that Jesus offered to Peter because he loved him, believed in him, and knew that his failures weren't the end of the story. And I want you to know that's the same for us. Your mistakes and your mess-ups don't take you out of the narrative. They don't disqualify you from God's love. Easter reminds us that we are forgiven no matter what. And what I love about this story, it does demonstrate that God's love for us when we make mistakes. Jesus didn't move away from Peter when he failed. He didn't say, no, that was your one chance, you're done. He moved towards Peter. He brought Peter back into the story. So today and during this Easter season, I want you to think about what you feel is keeping you from God's love and forgiveness. Is it a bad choice, a series of mistakes, a secret that nobody knows about? Because of Jesus, that thing doesn't have the power to separate you from God. Easter reminds us that we're forgiven no matter what. Because you're forgiven, you don't have to worry about being separate from God. So make a choice to take a step closer to God. Maybe it's simply saying a prayer or committing your life or recommitting your life to learn about God and follow the path that He set out for you. Because Easter reminds us that we are forgiven. No matter what, we are still part of the story. So, over the past 3 weeks, we've talked a lot about Easter and Jesus' ultimate sacrifice and what it meant not only for the thousands of years ago, but also for us right now. The 3 people that we've talked about over the last 3 weeks saw and experienced Jesus in the flesh, firsthand. Like, they got to touch and meet and talk to Jesus one-on-one. The task of spreading the word of Jesus' resurrection was I skipped over John. Through John's story, we're reminded that we're loved no matter what. No matter what we do, we are loved. Through Mary, we learned the task of spreading the word of Jesus' resurrection, showing us that we're important no matter what. No matter what the world thinks of us, no matter what we've done in the past, we do matter, and we're important. And then through Peter, we learned that we are forgiven no matter what, because Jesus died and came to life for all of us. We're loved, we're important, and we're forgiven. So as we go into small groups, you'll have a chance to talk about all the things we've reminded of and celebrate at Easter. Remember that small group is a place you can talk about whatever you need to talk about. It's a safe place. It's an open place. If you have any questions or any concerns, that's what we're here for. So as you head to small group, think about, how does it feel to know that you are forgiven no matter what? I'll close this in a word.